Welcome everybody to Exploring Energy in Everyday Life. I am Rebecca Karchere, medical intuitive and nutritionist, and my co-host here.
Hi, I'm Mary Von Ohlen. I am a holistic coach and specialize in addiction recovery and stress management.
Yeah, and we have a fun topic to talk to you about today called autoimmune disease.
Big scary word, big broad umbrella label that the medical system has put upon a whole bunch of conditions.
Yeah. So, excuse me. This is just, we're going to try to be brief about this, but essentially, autoimmune disease is the definition or the creation of the body attacking itself. That's what we've been brainwashed and programmed to believe, that the body is attacking itself. And so, lo and behold, then we have the medical medium who comes out of nowhere and says it's all BS. And so that's just, that's a savior to me, because I like when I hear someone be bold and talk about the merry-go-round of modern day medicine. An article that I wrote, he talks about the merry-go-round, which is just the BS of what they're teaching you when you go to a doctor. So, Mary, what were some of the conditions that usually we get labeled in this category?
Sure. So autoimmune diseases, think fibromyalgia, right? Mm-hmm. Which is, again, just a fancy name for like many muscles ache or many things ache.
Yeah.
And rheumatoid arthritis is a big one. Lupus. What else? Hashimoto's.
Right.
Thyroid disease.
Right.
Really, anything that has to do with inflammation and the body's immune response seem to kind of fall into that category these days. Anything chronic that involves the immune system, they've just thrown in there. And, you mentioned the medical medium, and we did another episode all about the medical medium and how he tends to focus his approach, therapeutically, is teaching people, empowering people through foods and herbs and the physical aspect. But from the emotional standpoint, he makes a really important point with autoimmune being kind of the main thing that he teaches about these different conditions that they've labeled under that just telling the patient, the individual who's suffering with whatever the symptoms are of whatever the condition is, that, hey, you know what? Your body isn't attacking itself. Your body hasn't misidentified itself as the enemy, and you're not in battle with yourself, causes a whole relief in terms of their like a whole paradigm shift in terms of how they're seeing themselves. And so that there's a sense of relief, like, oh, my body isn't attacking itself. It's not systematically attacking its own tissue. Oh my gosh, I'm under attack by myself.
Right. And so you stop blaming the body.
Right. Yeah. And then you can move past that, because otherwise we stay stuck in that label and in that story that we've been told, and feel victims and victimized, and stay stuck as the victim and feel like there's nothing you can do about it, or that it's just an uphill battle.
Yeah. So once you can let that sink in, that the body is not attacking itself. So what is actually going on? What's actually going on, he says, is that the body is responding to the Epstein-Barr virus. Now, and that's across the board what's happening. Is that correct? Am I missing anything?
For the most part, or some type of virus. He found that there's, he believes that there are something like 60 different varieties of it that haven't even been identified by Western medicine yet.
Right.
So it's either Epstein-Barr, it could be a herpes-related virus like shingles, different types of viruses, and also that our system is also inundated with heavy metals, so that there's different toxins that our immune system is really trying to deal with. It's just that the medical industry hasn't identified them, and so they say that your body's attacking itself, but really there's an immune response for a reason.
Right. So I just did a little tidbit of research, and I was explaining about Hashimoto's disease, and Anthony William goes on a rant about it, which I'm so proud of, because he says that the label Hashimoto's thyroiditis that was identified in the early 1900s was simply, what that translates into is, we don't know what this is. we've identified inflammation, but we don't know what this is. And he was saying that here we are in the year 2018, and we still have this outdated label that says we don't know what this is. And we're in the dark. He's saying that the medical community is in the dark ages because we're still calling it the same thing over 100 years ago. We don't know. How do we not know what this is?
So we'll sound fancy and call it, and give things labels like add itis to anything. Itis just means inflammation, right? Arthritis. Oh, your joints are inflamed. You probably have joint pain.
Right. So this really helps me cope with life more because I am in constant frustration when I hear people going to the doctor and the information that they get. 9 times out of 10, they don't know what, these people are in the ER and they can't find anything. My smoke comes out of my ears. So that's why I teach source energy technique. That's why I'm teaching people to help themselves. Let's take control back. Take our own power back and not give it to the what he calls the addicts. How modern day medicine is, he calls them addicts. Yeah, they're in denial.
Stuck in the same pattern, trying to be arrogant and control with information and greed. And that's a whole other topic. But that's really what's going on a macro level here.
Yes, thank you, Mary. Yes, we will talk about that in detail. So, what can we do to regulate inflammation, or what that really has to be individualized. I mean, I can give general information, but again, when you're working with an individual, it's all individually. Like for instance, you mentioned like the 60 plus varieties, right, of virus. Well, which one is it? And so you probably want to work with somebody. Unless you're really intuitive like myself and can figure these things out. But one awesome recommendation that is very popular these days to regulate inflammation is turmeric. Mm-hmm. That helps the body reduce inflammation. Another thing that would help reduce inflammation, just generally speaking, is again supporting the adrenal glands, which are the ones that are fighting whether it's the heavy metals, the emotional stress, the virus, whatever it is, those are the glands that need our support.
And that produce cortisol. So when you hear about, which are our body's natural, like cortisone, right? So when I think about people that I've known that have been diagnosed with RA, for example, rheumatoid arthritis, what does the medical field do? They prescribe steroids that are anti-inflammatories, like prednisone. Okay.
Right.
And our body has its own ability to fight inflammation. It just needs to be supported properly. When you go on those, then a whole host of other problems come up. I mean, don't get me started on prednisone and what it does to people's moods.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah. So our approach is support the glands to create their own cortisol levels to go, to help fight and, I don't want to even say fight, but to regulate inflammation. There's no fighting going on. Just get that out of the mix altogether. So, yes, when we're talking about inflammation in the body, you want to support the adrenal glands as they regulate in the inflammatory process. And then if it's, and then you'd want to identify where is the virus hiding? Where are the heavy metals hiding in the body? What are we going to do to support the body? And so that really depends on the individual.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then of course there's the emotional component, which it's rare that there's not an emotional component here.
Right.
So, what are the emotional stresses, and what have you started to believe about yourself, or have already believed about yourself that kind of sets you up for this type of battle, if you will, this type of struggle. And we talked about in other episodes, the spiritual side of symptoms. Also, when we talked about emotional freedom technique, that there are ways to kind of identify and process and shift the emotional kind of stagnation, or the emotional issues of the mind-body connection, mm-hmm. and also the limiting beliefs that we might be holding that then kind of contribute to this whole cascade of really blocking the flow, right? Like we talked about when we talked about migraines.
Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking about is in traditional Chinese medicine. I'm not an expert on it, but I've dabbled in studying that as well. And I believe that when it comes to anything, I talked about itis before, that any of the arthritis, anything with inflammation that we're talking about in Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, they believe that anytime that there's pain, because there's usually pain with inflammation eventually, right? Anytime there's pain, inflammation, there's some type of blockage. Mm-hmm. That's literally what they talk about in the diagnostic kind of arena of TCM, and that sounds very vague. Then they get into much more specifics, and who are the type of people that are affected by this, and the liver comes up. Again, we talked about that as well with migraines, but I'm just bringing that up to make a point that also that there are approaches that have, like traditional Chinese medicine, around for thousands of years, that have always looked at the whole body. Right. And those are not the alternative solutions. These are the not just theories, but these are the approaches that have been around forever, that took the whole body into consideration. And so just kind of going back to what Rebecca was talking about, where you're talking about this history of just giving a label and then finding a drug and attaching it to it and saying, here, try to manage the symptoms with this. It's so backwards, and we're so stuck in that. And how did we get to that place? Because really, thousands of years ago, it was the opposite. We were actually looking at where's the flow? What's throwing our flow off? Because we knew that when everything's just in harmony and in flow, we don't have all these crazy ailments.
Right. Well, this does require a whole other show, but because I'm just thinking of like how the U.S. is just like a bunch of teenagers. If we look at the energy collectively, as opposed to other parts of the world that are more mature and have more culture and respect history and where they've come from, we're really juvenile. And I think that is very obvious when you look at when we talk about medicine. So we can certainly dive into that next time, but I just want to, if you're hearing this for the first time, your body's not attacking itself, so calm down and give us a call if you need to. Medical Medium's very busy. I can promise you that. Or pick up one of his books or go to his website, get yourself informed and be empowered. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time.
Next week.
Yes, please comment and reach out. Thanks for watching.